interviewed your partner, Gary Vee, at VCon. I've had interactions with that press for him as well for Entrepreneur Magazine.
Cool.
So I'm always so fascinated, and I think probably part of me models myself over the Vaynerchuk methodology and on how to build a business, because I want to be like that when I grow up. However,
Don't we all?
yeah, right. I know you can't just snap your fingers and you become Gary Vee or James Orsini. We have James Orsini here, Dominic Damaski.
Look at that. Yeah, I've been studying James. I've been watching his videos. I've been binge watching his videos. I'm learning a lot.
It's a consistent message, right? That you could tell.
It is. So, okay. So here's what I've noticed in the videos, Julie and James. One of the things he says over and over is making connections is so important to him. He's all about making connections and connecting other people. Why? Why waste your time? What's that mean? Why do you do it, James?
I do it because I'm in a place where I can, right? I help people simply because I can. I often don't do it for something in return. However, I'm not afraid to make a phone call, years down the road and just reach out to somebody who I haven't spoken to in years, knowing that, I did a favor for, I made a connection for. It's one of my superpowers. I have a way of seeing how the dots connect in a room. I could walk into a room and say, oh, this goes to this and this goes to this. And that's what sort of amazes some people. Like I will send an article to somebody, and they'll be like, holy shit, like he remembered we had that conversation and thought enough to send me this little article on it. So that goes a long way in personal touch.
I'm sitting at the feet of someone great, and I want to rewind and meet little James, if you will. And who is James Orsini? He is the president for startup operations for VaynerX. If you recognize the name Vayner or Vaynerchuk or VCon or Gary Vee, James is Gary's right hand person. So
remember you said that, not me.
Or vice versa, right?
I'm trying to be humble in this.
But it's an accolade, James, and it is something people resonate with. But to know you and where you came from is so fascinating. As an entrepreneur enabler, I think our audience, those that are listening right now, are going to say, what is an entrepreneur enabler, and how did James get from being knee deep in financial stuff and become someone that is teaching people to be leaders, teaching people how to build businesses, teaching people how to make money? What does that look like for you?
Well, when Gary interviewed me, he said, can you describe what you do in a single sentence? And I said, yeah, I take dreams and visions and put them into action plans. And he's like, great, you're hired. I got a lot of dreams and visions. So that was over 10 years.
That was it? That was your interview?
Well, it was a dinner.
I could get hired there.
He's been known to impulse hire. I'm as you see people in the audience raising hands and saying, can I come to work for you? And Gary's like, yeah, right. Send an email to this guy over here. But I didn't know Gary when we met. I knew his brother, AJ. In fact, I sat next to his brother at a basketball game. That's how we met. And I became a mentor to AJ over the years as I was traveling throughout my career. And I just kind of called him and said, hey, I'm going to be back in New York City working for big advertising again. And he's like, hey, did you ever meet my brother Gary? And I said, no. Did you ever hear my brother Gary? Not really. Okay, do a quick Google search. He won't be hard to find. And that was good advice because he wasn't hard to find. So spending 15 minutes with him and I had been chief operating officers, Interbrand and Saatchi and a right arm to many CEOs who were very successful in the marketing space. And that's kind of, what Gary wanted to be. At the time, he was really known as a retailer, a very successful retailer through the wine library, and wanted to begin to crack the code on advertising and marketing. And he knew how to sell product from being on the floor of a liquor store. And now, it was time to learn how the industry worked, and more importantly, not to replicate it, but to change it with his methodology. So, as you said, Julie, cutting my teeth in public accounting, and I was an auditor. I'm a New York State CPA. I worked for Goldman Sachs as an analyst. All of those things helped me to become the leader that eventually became, and like to think I still am, and then realized how I could apply some basic principles, embrace the fundamentals to achieve success for some of these entrepreneurs who they don't know what they don't know, right? Like, Gary was like, look, you've made 25 years of mistakes. Help me avoid the potholes and move faster. And that's kind of the role I played now. I've been with him 10 years. This is my 4th title and 5th role that I've played for him over that period of time. And now there are many right arms to Gary in the building now. And there are many leaders who sit around the table. But it's been a great ride, and watching his company go from when I started a little under 42 million, a little under 400 people to, probably close to 350 million, 2,000 people across 15 offices now. And remember, this is only one thing that he's doing. Like you mentioned, VFriend, that's another whole world of stuff that he's working on there. And he's got Vayner Sports that he's working, and he's still helping his dad with the wine library stuff. So, people ask me, does he sleep? And I'm like, yeah, he sleeps. He just does more shit when he's awake than any human that I've ever met.
James, so for the people coming up, the entrepreneurs that see this growth, that see Gary scaling, that see the work you're doing, that went from Wall Street to digital marketing and all that, any low-hanging fruit for them, any tips that they could take and say, James and Gary did it like this. We're missing the boat. We should be doing this. What could they do?
Well, Gary says hiring is guessing and firing is knowing, right? So he would fire faster. And I think if he was asked about one thing, and I've heard him say this, that he would have hired more senior faster. I remember early on, it was more of a little, running like more of a Pied Piper kind of thing with a lot of, juniors around the table. I was one of the first set of real senior talent that he brought in, and now the hallways are full with them. But there's no substitute for wisdom and experience, right? And sometimes you just got to talk to somebody who did it and said, don't do it this way. I've made these mistakes before. You don't have to do it this way, or let me tell you how it's done. And then somebody like Gary's like, well, I could figure out a way to do it better. And I'm like, great. Now you just broke a 150-year-old model. We've been doing, because he wasn't, what I loved about it was he wasn't an ad guy. So he didn't look at it like all the advertising guys. He came at it like a retailer, like what's gonna sell this shit, and what you're doing, it may not have been the right thing to do, and I'm going to do it differently. And he has, and now he's become a voice in the industry.
I get that 100%, and I just wanted to say I've been told along the way that you don't have to bang your head up against the wall when somebody else has. So to your point, if somebody like James is there to lift you or teach you or Gary, then why wouldn't you listen to the people that have blazed the path? Go on, Julie.
Well, my thought is, I think, and you tell me from your experience, because you are an entrepreneur enabler, which I love, and I hope you coin that and trademark that ASAP. So many people are thinking that they can rise to the level of being famous on social media through social media marketing, and they think that is a low-hanging fruit. Oh, I do it. But I personally don't see it. How do you see building a business as an entrepreneur enabler via social media? Or maybe you don't. You unplugged something, James.
Yeah, I had to unplug my that's always a way, right? So that's how I help entrepreneurs, right?
Pull the plug. Just pull the plug. Stop
do it. Do it live. Go on.
But that makes for the best kind of stories when you kind of have that messiness to it. But that's besides the point.
the messy middle is very important, and being able to just muddle through it, just not get, frustrated and flustered by what's around you. Social media has leveled the playing field. Back in earlier times when I was at Saatchi, you had to spend multiple millions of dollars to get your message onto television. And it was a single message that you hope stuck to a large portion of the audience, right? And now social media enables anybody, right, who developed a skincare product to compete with Unilever for virtually no money by having a piece of content that goes viral. So, applause for the door that has opened. Now, that said, I think it's all additive. It's when newspapers came out, when radio comes out, it doesn't do away with newspapers. When television comes out, it doesn't do away with radio. When the internet comes out, it doesn't do away with television, right? Social media comes out, and they're all still there in some respect. So it's an and. I remember talking about a billboard story with Gary, and he talked about billboards. I was like, oh, I thought we were anti-billboard. He goes, no. He goes, I was anti-billboard when it was $10,000. Now it's $500. Buy the whole block. So it's this additive and type approach, and entrepreneurs have that at their fingertips. Now, what I love about entrepreneurs and where social media works the best is when your passion becomes your profession, and you're speaking about a topic that you're passionate about. And Gary would tell you this all the time. Anybody can make money by being passionate about, a product that they're making, or that they've come across, or a service that they're providing. And the audience feels that euphoric approach to the passion. Now, all of a sudden, it's not sales. This is not a commercial. This is somebody talking about something they're passionate about. And I'm in. We refer to it as a SMA or social media ad, but really, it's good, compelling content that makes you want to experience the product or service.
That's good stuff right there. That I hear you talking about underpriced attention too. So in this world, you talked about the billboards. Now tell me about underpriced attention. Where else can the entrepreneur go? Or should it be social? Or should it be out doing events? Or
well, there's certain platforms that still are a good place to garnish this underpriced attention. Places like Facebook and Instagram have gotten a little more expensive to run your ads on. It's not that way on LinkedIn, and certainly TikTok is still a good place to get a piece of viral content to go out there with just organic, no paid media dollars behind it, to amplify it. Still think podcasting, like you're doing right here, with underpriced attention, right? This is not costing us a ton of money to do, and you'll put it out on your social channels, as will I, right? And we'll garnish some attention from that. So there's still play. Gary believes that the Super Bowl is underpriced attention. Like, what? How the hell can that be? It's 7 figures, it's millions of dollars and everything. He said, yeah, but people talk about the Super Bowl commercial the week before the Super Bowl. Everybody watches it on the day of the Super Bowl. You're not fast forwarding the commercials like you would be if you were watching the Oscars or something like that, right? Everybody's glued to the television. And we're going to talk about it the week after. So look at all that attention that you got. When you divide that attention by 7-figure, it's still underpriced. So, you just need to keep your eyes open for where the opportunities are.
Obsessed. And I worry about our entrepreneurs, as you are the entrepreneur enabler, that they think that they can just post stuff on social media and make a lot of money. And I know in my experience, I need to invest in my brand, my business. I need to pay money to make money. Is that correct in your mind?
Yeah. One, there are too many who call themselves entrepreneurs who really aren't, right? So, and I know it's funny because we joke about the fact that the last time I looked, it was like 268 universities have entrepreneurism as a major now. And Gary's like, wait a second, is somebody going to teach you like entrepreneurs? And just, why are you even sitting in the classroom? Just go out and start selling if you're an entrepreneur, right? Just hit the ground selling. So that's one thing. The second thing is branding is different than sales. You know, it's funny. We talked a little bit about my career. When I was in public relations, we thought we did branding. When I was in branding, we thought we did advertising. When I was in advertising, we thought we did everything, right? So, but there's these true nuggets of gold in each one of those. And first and foremost, you need to build a brand. Okay. So Gary spent 10 years building the Gary Vee brand, which initially was narrowly focused as he was the wine guy, right? But he was able to then expand the brand to be, no, he's the guy that knows how to sell shit. Okay, so now that covers you, into the marketing space. And then, he was a guy who knew how to sell stuff on social media. So he really understands these platforms now. He's become almost like a celebrity in the platform space. Okay, well, now his brand can carry a sneaker. His brand can carry a wine. His brand can carry a book, right? So brand building and brand differentiation is very important. What happens is a lot of people get frustrated because they're not selling shit while they're building a brand. But yet you have to, Dominic said that he's looking at a lot of my video content. He'll see a consistency in the brand. I own Consistent Cougar, the Be Friends NFT, for a reason, because my brand's consistent everywhere, not at work, not just at work, in my family, at my church, right? At my business, in my social circles. I'm a consistent brand, but it's taken me 40 years to build it.
James, let me jump in here. How do entrepreneurs, sometimes they're here, they're there. How do they narrow down and how do they focus? Like you said, you're consistent. How do they do it?
When I went to work for a company that I became the CEO of, I had to meet with the largest shareholder, who happened to be the wife of the founder. And through a divorce, she got a big settlement. And she said to me, "Oh, you're gonna be perfect working with my husband." I said, "Yeah, why is that?" She said, "Well, you can't send him to go get milk at a store because he's going to open the freezer and he's going to look at that hinge and he's going to say, I can make that hinge better. And he's going to forget the milk." So he said, somebody has to keep them focused on doing what they're doing. These entrepreneurs have no shortages of ideas. There's a shortage of execution and there's a shortage of focus, okay, on getting one or two wins within your, within your hallways, right? So even with Gary early on, and this is not something I share often, but early on, he gave me 5 pillars. I want to be a $500 million integrated, independent, international communications company. Can you help me do that? And I said, yeah, I can. Okay. Now, as a serial entrepreneur and a guy who was moving at 100 miles an hour, I would often use that prism to take his ideas and funnel it through and just say, hey, listen, $500 million independent, integrated, international communication. Like, I don't see where that fits in. And that was the only way I was able to get a couple of no's from some of the stuff that he wanted to do, or did it early on, obviously, when I played that role. But, just being able to bring it together and make sure that the execution is what wins. The idea, there's no shortage of ideas. Everybody's got ideas. It's the execution. That's how I became, the first time I was a chief operating officer. I was in a conference room at an Omnicom company, and the then president walked up and he said, okay, who here has great ideas? And everybody raised their hand. And he said, who here can execute? And I raised my hand. He said, great, you're going to be our chief operating officer. And that was it. I was bestowed that title in that very room.
I mean, I just got chills because I'm going to say probably 2/3 of the entrepreneurs I meet, they have ideas. Oh, I want to do this. Julie, can you help me with this? Dom, can you help me with this? And there is no execution. What is the answer to this? I mean, like, that excited me beyond anything.
Well,
I mean,
what
you
I
excite me,
say,
James, but like that is just like, wow, for you to say that, articulate that, and I'm seeing this every single day. That is what excites me.
I often say a dream without a plan is nothing more than a wish, right? So you have to. I've done some videos on how to do a simple business plan. Okay, just a one sheet of paper, kind of. Let's talk about how we are going to execute against this great idea that we have. I've done videos on the Eisenhower matrix, which is a decision tree matrix separating the important from the urgent. So let's put all of your ideas on, right? When I was building the Sasha Group for Gary, I told him in year 2 we were going to do $12.5 million, and he's like, "Well, how are you going to do that?" So now the company was young. I didn't have client names to put to it, but I did have 12 or 15 things that I wanted to get done over the course of that year, with my leadership team as well. And I plotted these Eisenhower matrix, and some were important and urgent, and some were less important, and some were urgent but little, and then some were neither urgent nor important. So that became like a nice to have in the lower quadrant of the box. And and then Gary took a couple of the dots and he moved them around, like, this is a little more important for me and this one isn't. And now together we owned this roadmap of decision. How are we going to get all these ideas done? And some where it was, I'm going to do something in e-commerce, and I'm going to launch a podcast. I'm going to, you know what I mean? And I was able to share that with my management team and say, okay, now let's dole this out. Who's going to have the assignment here to get this done? By the way, we don't need to get this done in the first quarter. You guys over here, by the second or third quarter, I need to see this. And I wrote a piece on that as well in Medium. A lot of my writings are in Medium. Dominic, I don't know if you found your way there. Less video, but written stuff on these topics.
Hey, James, we don't want to keep you all day, but you have to help me out with something here. We need your advice. So Julie doesn't do enough video. I need her to turn camera
are you talking
around.
about? We're on video now.
Yeah, but I'm talking like straight up holding camera, doing video. What do you think?
I find that very, very, very anti what I'm doing. Although I'm not afraid to get on video, but I don't see that as a revenue generating activity, if you will. So,
Julie, you got to do it because you want to be seen as an authoritative figure on entrepreneurism. Okay, so. Here's my suggestion. The next article that you see about entrepreneurs that resonates with you, right? They got too many ideas, not done enough execution, yada, yada, yada. I want you to green screen that article behind you and then get in front of it with your little iPhone and talk about, what you agree with in the article and what you don't agree about, right? And then just Dominic will help you post that on LinkedIn.
You really think that is something that will help elevate my brand?
I don't know. Let's ask Dominic, who was looking at my video stuff. What do you think, Dominic? Did my video stuff help elevate my brand?
Absolutely. And I see the green screen stuff all the time with Gary and you guys pointing like this to whatever they're talking about.
Did you see the one I recently did about purposing for profit and making
the last one I read said that, you were actually right on talking about I felt like you were talking about the stock market and going up and down and all that. And you were like, hey man, this happened, this date, this thing, this date. Relax.
Yeah. That was one that I actually resurfaced that because I wrote that five years ago.
You're talking about current events and repurposed it. So
repurposed the content. That's the other thing you could do, Julie, is go back and repurpose some of your old content.
Well, that's good stuff there. And you know what? Yeah. I'm going to say this here, James, and you can hold me accountable. I write for Entrepreneur Magazine. I'm going to write an article. I'm going to quote you in the article on the difference between our ideas and our vision versus execution. I think that is where all the problems are, and having the financial funds and ability to take risks.
Yeah.
Like I'm not, and then I'll do that, even though.
And then you'll send me the article and I'll help you promote it.
Yeah, no. And I love that. I love that because I think so many people think they can just do it by wishing upon a star, as you said, or manifesting, if you use the word manifest, you actually have to take action. You have those ideas, you think about it, you become it, but you have to take action. And I think so many entrepreneurs think miss the action element of building a business
Mhm.
and think it can just be real simple. And as you know, it takes a lot. It takes a lot to get to where we want to be.
It does. And, people have different measures of success too.
Yeah.
I think having a well-balanced life too is important for so many. One of the things I'm working on now is something called Vive, which is leadership training and executive coaching and masterclass type arrangement. And we see, so many of the founders are really burnt and fried, and really need a refresh. So we actually talk about nutritional wellness and sleep wellness, and being able to find your meditation time, and all those are very important in keeping balance. Anything, even good stuff out of balance becomes bad stuff.
I did see that pivot when I was watching your videos too. I saw the pivot to health in there. So I get it. So James, before Julie wraps us up, is there, would you mind sharing a tip for other creative entrepreneurs, something they can take and chew on? You got anything for us?
Yeah, I think when your passion becomes your profession, it lights out. So whatever you dip your toe into, if you're passionate about it, we as the audience will feel it. We will see it. Okay. So, and if you're not, we're going to feel and see that too. So, people ask me, why do I do all this? Business is my hobby. Like if I'm on vacation, I'm still reading the Wall Street Journal. I'm looking at business books. They're like, oh my God, aren't you like unplugging? This is my unplug. I'm really passionate about this stuff. Right. So I enjoy it. So, finding something that really wakes you up in the morning, that you're not hitting the snooze button 2 or 3 times and going back to sleep, is where you got to be. Even if that means making less money, but being happy doing it. Look, I would have made a hell of a lot more money if I stayed at Goldman Sachs than I ever made in my entire life. I was just not happy. It wasn't for me. I'm glad I experienced it. I met very good, nice people there. I speak well of it. I'm involved in alumni relations, but I knew that it was not for me. And the marketing world was for me and is for me, and that's where I've been spending a lot of my time.
James Orsini, the James Orsini, president for startup operations for VaynerX, and my favorite entrepreneur enabler. Such a rich wealth of information. We are so blessed to have you in our space. And we hope you come again. We hope you become a part of the creative entrepreneur experience. Reach out to James. Everything was going to be in the show notes. Just research and watch all his videos. Follow him on LinkedIn. Be James's best friends like we are here. Thank you, James, for being a part of this revolution.
It's been my pleasure. And I am James Orsini on both LinkedIn and Instagram. I am at Jimmy the Pencil on X.
Jimmy the Pencil. That is something I got to talk about.
Story for another day. Yep.
All right.
This is somebody you got to have on again. There's so much wealth in it.
We'll have to do a follow-up.
Jimmy the Pencil. Guys, hang on to episode 2 and meet Jimmy the Pencil. Thanks, James. We appreciate you and are grateful.